of Coffee with Karan, Priyanka had not become such a big star. So Priyanka was probably if there was 15 episodes, I'm just making it up. Priyanka was maybe the 10th episode or something like that. Um, and the first question Karan asked her was, what is this about you and Akshay Kumar?
In the first 3 minutes of that conversation with this classmate, the person turned around and told me that Parveen at age 16 was a drug addict.
Or Chiranjeevi, or Nagarjuna, and of course the directors down south, Bharti Raja, K. Raghavendra Rao, who introduced her in Himmatwala. So all of them, and you get a picture. So and then I think that for me is the foundation of what really made Sridevi the legend.
Films have been the medium to deliver great literature to the masses since the silver screen has been lit. On today's session here at OLF 2020, we discuss the lives behind the screen with the ones who got to catch glimpses of it firsthand. Our first speaker, Karishma Upadhyay, is a journalist and the author of the biography Parveen Babi, A Life. Next up, we have Aseem Chhabra, a film journalist, freelance writer, and film festival programmer in New York City. He has been published everywhere, from the New York Times to the Mumbai Mirror. The last name on today's panel is an Indian author and screenwriter known for his best-selling novel, The Emperor's Riddles, and for scripting Sony's historical television epic, Horus, none other than Satyarth Nayak. We have senior journalist and author Kaveri Bamzai and TNI's entertainment editor Sudhir Srinivasan discussing film biographies and the stories that were left untold.
Hello and welcome to the Odisha Lit Fest. Today we have 5 film journalists. I mean, that's really something. All of us together. I don't know whether all of us would like to be described as film journalists, but yeah, primarily I think we are. And 3 of them have written remarkable biographies of people, of film stars that we love and worship. And Aseem particularly has written, he's become quite a master at it. So we have Aseem Chhabra with us, who's written the biographies of Shashi Kapoor, Priyanka Chopra, and Irfan in that order. Karishma Upadhyay has written again a remarkable biography of Parveen Babi. I think an all-time favorite icon for my generation of men and women. And we have Satyarth Nayak, who's written a lovely, very, very in-depth work on Sridevi. And there'll be Sudhir Srinivasan, entertainment editor of the New Indian Express, and me. We'll be talking to these 3 people about what is a biography, because it's someone whom we think we know and love so well and know everything about, and yet to tell us a story about these people, which is still compelling and which is still readable, is really a craft. So Aseem, first with you, because you've written on 3 pretty diverse people, but in a sense, what unites them, I think, is the fact that they really were and are still some of them India's global ambassadors. Shashi Kapoor, Priyanka Chopra, and Irfan. So that really unites them. But I think when you started writing, that possibly wasn't what you were looking at.
No, that I think at some point, maybe by the time I was working on the Irfan book, I said, my God, I'm sort of creating a trilogy of sort that I hadn't even thought about. But
Yeah.
each time I was given, Shashi Kapoor was the name that I thought of myself after much thinking and going back and forth with my publishers, the editors at Rupa. But each time I've sort of without really being conscious of it, I picked these 3 characters whose work sort of transcended, went beyond the borders of India and Indian film industry itself. And I think it's been something of real interest to me. I was talking to you, Kaveri, just the other day also. I went as a student to America in 1981. So I lived a lot more than half my life in the US. And so all the years that I lived in the US, I was looking at the Indian film industry, and I started looking at Indian actors, Indian film industry, also as Hollywood, how Hollywood would represent India, or how Bollywood would represent the US and the West. And that was something that was coming through in a lot of my journalistic writings, things I was tracking, for instance. And so when I decided to work on Shashi Kapoor, while I was very, very interested also in Shashi Kapoor's career in India, I was very interested in the films he had produced, many of the popular films he had done with Yash Chopra and Amitabh Bachchan. I was also very keen to understand and learn more and read more about and write about his work outside India with the Merchant Ivory team
Yes.
and some of the other filmmakers in the West. Which same and Priyanka's journey, of course, was a much more clearer one. She actually left India. Initially to start a music career, then a television show, and now she has number of film projects that are coming up as such. And Irfan sort of straddled between India and the West. So yeah, it's sort of it was very organic. I didn't plan it like that.
Yeah, but it happened, and I'm really glad that it did, because it's given us an aspect, a window into a changing world, and how the world viewed the Indian film industry as well. Karishma, I want to come to you because Parveen Babi for us, I think, was such an icon of beauty and glamour and everything that was bohemian. And yet, her later years were so tragic. So for you to deconstruct that glamorous woman and, the tragedy that she became, must have been quite a task. And you've done it so well. So talk a bit about that. And how did you choose Parveen, or did she choose you in a way? How did it happen?
I didn't know much about Parveen when an editor from Hachette got in touch with me asking if I'd be interested in writing about Parveen. I just knew of a few films. I knew, of course, the songs. I remembered, how beautiful and glamorous and all of that she was, but I didn't really know much about her life or her films. So one of the first things I did after I got that call from Hachette was to reach out to a friend who's been in the industry since the 70s. And I was like, oh, this has just come my way. What do you think? And he jumped at the idea, and he's like, it's a fantastic idea because just such an incredible life. And he had actually met Parveen in the 90s after she returned from the US.
Okay.
So he started telling me about her, and one of the things that kind of caught my attention immediately was the fact that Parveen left the industry twice. And then she came back, and at both times she came back with films with the biggest banners, with the biggest directors. And, I've been writing about films for about 20 years. So I know how unforgiving the industry can be, right. Especially to, an actress, and you can't leave and come back. There's a lot of money involved, so people are not very forgiving. So that's what got me interested in what was it about her that people wanted to work with her over and over again. And then of course there was the time cover, the mental health issues, and so it took me like about 3 years to kind of put the jigsaw pieces together, because obviously she's not around. She doesn't have family members. Her father passed away when she was really young. She was the only child, and her mother passed away a few years before she did. So it's been quite a journey to kind of piece together the different aspects of her life.
Right, but you've done it really well. And
thank you.
Yeah, and obviously, what documents did you rely on mostly? Did you rely on film archives, on Stardust, Filmfare, because they really have become very valuable now?
No, so it was a combination of archival material from magazines and newspapers, and conversations with people. So I've spoken to over 100 people for the book.
Wow.
Of which about 60, 70 are on record, because that was the other thing that I was very, very conscious of, the fact that you can say whatever you want and get away with it if you're off the record.
Yeah.
By that time I knew how many rumors and controversies and things that there were about Parveen. So interestingly, one of the first people I met for the book was a classmate of hers from Ahmedabad, from where she studied. And in the first 3 minutes of that conversation with this classmate, the person turned around and told me that Parveen at age 16 was a drug addict. And I was like, okay, I hear you. Let me go find out more. Yeah. And then after that, the other 99 people I spoke with, all of them turned around and said she never did drugs.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that I was faced with in terms of, making sure that what people were telling me about her was as authentic as possible.
And Karishma, how do you proceed in such cases? I mean, I'm sure all of you, when you're reaching out to multiple people about one person, you're often going to receive a lot of conflicting information, right? So when you do receive that, how do you go ahead and how do you decide what the right narrative is? Or is that sort of subjective in a sense?
So I would ask as many people about something similar if possible, and then go with, kind of what the majority told me. So in the case of like the drugs business, like pretty much everyone across the board, apart from this one person, said that she never did drugs. Her only addiction was cigarettes. She barely even drank. And then there were like small things, like somebody was like, oh, she used to tell a lot of white lies. And then so you asked as many people as you spoke, oh, did you ever notice something like this? And if most people turned around and said no, then, I mean, you kind of start to trust your gut on stuff like that.
Satyat, I want to ask you about Sri Devi, especially because she had two very distinct careers. And for you to get both in must have been a challenge. So talk a little about that, because large parts of North India know her because of Bollywood, but then of course she had a flourishing career in the South as well, where she began. So what was the challenge in getting both these aspects of her life and work into the book?
No, that for me was one of the most important reasons why I wanted to do this book on her. So that, you get a complete picture of who she was. Like you said, we know her as the Hawa Hawai and the Chandni. But down south, before she came to Bollywood in '83, she had a 20-year-long career where she had worked with every top male actor possible. And she began as a child star. So even before she became a heroine, there is a phase of her. She started acting when she was merely 4. And from 4 to about 13 is when she became a heroine for the first time in a movie called Mundru Murichu. So for that entire decade, she was one of the most sought after child stars. So the first chapter talks about her only as a child star, because she did some 50, 60 movies, which is insane for a child star even back then. And that too in 4 languages, not just Tamil, so every director, every producer wanted her. And she was getting, even as a child star, she was getting whole songs dedicated only for her. She had reached that level even as a child, where they would actually create sequences only because she emoted so beautifully as a child star. So to get that, and then of course get her entire journey as a Tamil heroine, then Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, all of that for me was extremely important. And which it was also, I get why it would be daunting for someone to do a book on her, because 300 movies, 5 languages, where do you even begin? But for me, I began right at the beginning. I went down south. I interviewed some of the greatest actors she worked with, whether it is Kamal Hassan or Rajnikant or Chiranjeevi or Nagarjuna, and of course the directors down south, Bharti Raja, K. Raghavendra Rao, who introduced her in Himmatwala. So all of them, and you get a picture. So and then I think that for me is the foundation of what really made Sri Devi the legend. For example, in the very first film that she did as a child star, in an interview she remembers that, and she says that she was playing Lord Murugan in that film, whom we know as Lord Kartikeya. So she says every time before a shot would be taken, the director would make me sit down in my full godly costume, and he would break a coconut and do an arti, only because I was playing a god. So she says that might sound funny, but she says for me, that became a life lesson, that this stage, this space, this set is something very sacred. It is something akin to a temple. So she realized that the moment the camera goes on, you have to act, no matter whatever you might be going through. It is something very sacred. So I think those foundations, that the very foundation of who she was as an actor that we saw in Hindi cinema, comes from these roots, which is what I wanted to explore in down south. Yeah.
Satyat, maybe I can have you add on to this further. I read in an interview of yours where you spoke at length about this book, and you said that you've mainly focused on her career in this biography, and resisted any temptation to venture into the personal, so to speak. And I want to ask you this especially because it almost seems to me like there is a voyeuristic reason behind people's interest in reading biographies. You know what I'm saying, right? It's almost intrusion in a sense. You want to peek into their lives and know more than they let out in films. So, do you think your reluctance to focus on the personal sort of goes against this voyeuristic demand of the public to understand more about these people.
I don't fully agree. I don't think I've completely let go of the personal. In fact, definitely there was a definite endeavor on my part to even give you a picture of what she was as a person. Because I think for Sridevi especially, she was that we all know she was that person, who had these two distinct personas. So she was this one person before the camera, and behind the camera, she was an altogether different personality. So and that was her intrigue. That had always been her intrigue. What was so mystical about her, and I think I did want to penetrate that aura. I did want to go behind the camera and find out about her, which is why I've interviewed people who knew her as a person and not necessarily as a star. So I think you will find glimpses of her as a person. Like, for example, especially when as a teenager, when you were acting in films down south, what did she go through? What were her dreams? What were her ambitions? Did she even want to act as a teenager? So I think I've touched on those aspects. Even there are interviews where I picked up portions where she talks about, herself as simply as a woman. The fact that she knows that she's reached a stage where she's a successful star, and she might not be able to find a life partner given the kind of circumstances that she is in. There's a very poignant line that she says in one interview. She says, "I am no longer a woman. I am an actress." And maybe so somewhere the star had started eroding the person that she was. So getting a hint of that. Also, then, of course, her life with Boni, that whole controversy, and then, of course, her becoming a mother. And then, so I think I have touched upon aspects. Also, see, like what Karishma is saying, once you do a book on a star who is no more, a lot of the personal stuff people don't really share with you. They prefer to talk about the nicer things. A lot of the so-called controversial things are kind of not given to. And since I was completely dependent on interviews and material that I had since she was no longer, alive. So a lot of it, I do agree. If she was around, maybe we could have had a more personal glimpse into who she was. But given the material that I had and the person I interviewed, I think I've managed to some extent to give you at least a peek into the mystic that Sridevi was.
Aseem, I wanted to put this question to you because what is important sometimes is what you leave out rather than what you put into a biography. And how difficult or easy was it for you in each of the three cases?
Well, in the first two books, the one on Shashi Kapoor and Priyanka, I really had to think in terms of what I should add and what I should not add. I honestly, all the three books, the intent was to celebrate through their craft, through their particular films, and to let the readers sort of revisit the films. That was the most important thing. I mean, in Shashi's case, for instance, I did write a lot about Shashi's relationship with Jennifer, how Jennifer's father was not very pleased with the relationship and was very upset when she left the theater company that he was running. And a lot of Shashi's personal life also, and his personality comes through. I mean, when Aparna Sen told me that she was shooting 36 Chaurangi Lane in Calcutta while Shashi was in Bombay, but every weekend he would fly over to Calcutta and host a huge party for the entire cast and crew. Right. How generous he was in that sense. There were rumors about Shashi's affair, at least one affair with a particular movie star. I don't have to mention it. I left it out. No, but let me. The name doesn't matter. The point is basically, there is nothing documented about the relationship. Right. Okay, I'm not the kind of journalist who pursues gossip. The idea was not for that. What I was essentially talking about Shashi Kapoor was, to me, what was really important was to look at the man, his work, his career, the films he promoted, how generous he was, and not to make it into a gossip kind of a book. He was very unwell when I was writing the book. To me, he's got grandchildren. I mean, what's the legacy that he's leaving, and what did I want them to remember if they ever read my book? So I kept, if there was any gossip, if there was any truth about it, out of the book. In Priyanka's case, what's interesting is Priyanka's relationships, a lot of the relationships were out there in the magazines a lot. In fact, the best source for me was to go to Karan Johar's Coffee with Karan. I think he did 6 sessions with Priyanka. And so the first season of Coffee with Karan, Priyanka had not become such a big star. So Priyanka was probably if there was 15 episodes, I'm just making it up, Priyanka was maybe the 10th episode or something like that. And the first question Karan asked her was, "What is this about you and Akshay Kumar?" Now, And she was like, "Oh, I don't know." And, you know, she was only in her 20s and she didn't want to talk about it. That's out there. Anyone can watch it. That conversation.
Right.
Later, there was a story in Times of India about how, you know, Akshay Kumar and Twinkle once had a huge fight in a hotel lobby in Goa where lots of people watched. So if it is there already in the press and in public domain, then I can use it.
Right.
Some of Priyanka's relationships, again, one particular relationship, which is just everyone gossips about it.
Yeah.
I had no evidence about that.
Right.
That was one question, you know, while Karan Johar asked her about her Harman Baweja relationship and also Shahid Kapoor. In fact, there's one of the best Karan Johar sessions is with Shahid and Priyanka. And Karan just keeps asking, "Are you guys having an affair? Are you guys having an affair?" And Priyanka's like, I can't talk about it. And Shahid's saying, "I'm not going to talk about it if you don't talk about it." They just go back and forth. And Karan says, "I can read enough. I know you guys are having an affair." It's out there. I can write about it. You know, I want to respect the people I was writing about. There were times I wrote about her, Priyanka's performance, her acting abilities sort of changed over a period of time. She became a far better actress than what she was initially. That was me as a journalist, sort of as a film critic or whatever, sort of watching over, you know, and reviewing her career. I wasn't going to make up gossip.
Right.
I had to have some evidence to what I wrote about.
What about Irfan?
Irfan really didn't have much out there. I mean, I have to admit, I mean, when I started writing the book about Irfan, he had just announced that he had cancer and he'd gone for the treatment. Some people whispered in my ear that, "Oh, Irfan also, you know, by the way, he did this to this particular actress or that actress or not." Arey Baba, koi evidence lao mere liye. You know, I'm not going to sit and just make up stories like that, you know. And there was so much greatness in Irfan's performances that, you know, there was enough material for my book really for me to get into this kind of he said, she said kind of gossipy stories.
Right.
So, you know, Asim, I wanna ask you something about this. Typically, I noticed that one of the main selling points of biographies these days seems to be to sort of have a controversy get generated around the release of the book. You know, this is happening across the world. It's not even just an Indian phenomenon. It doesn't concern just film stars. It seems to be the case with many biographies. For business reasons, as writers, is it then tempting to sort of milk any one or two angles you have to try and generate some noise? Do you get that sort of, I mean, not just you as a writer, but I'm saying, do you get any pressure from publishers, for example? I mean, talk to me about the time of the release of a book and what goes on during that time to promote the book.
Well, unfortunately, some other things happened during the times of some of the books. I mean, Irfan passed away 4 months after my book came out. It's something that I did not want to wish for. I didn't want my book to sell because Irfan had passed away, but it did sell much more. It's now in the second print already because of had passed away. Shashi's book also, Shashi passed away, I think, about a year and a half after the book came out. But again, the sales shot up around that time. That was not something I was wishing for. As a writer, of course, you know, you're happy if your book sells because you get some royalties. You know, we make very little money as writers, really. Apart from that, I wasn't looking at very controversial figures. I mean, Priyanka is probably the most potentially controversial kind of a figure. But even in Priyanka's case, I was much more interested in, and you know, I'm perhaps I may not be the ideal kind of a biographer, basically, if I'm not looking for controversy. Really seriously, because that's not the direction I'd go in. I was much more interested in understanding how somebody who can become such a huge movie star in one country, then step into another country where no one knows her, and then become a big star there also. To me, that was very, very interesting. And I think I spent a considerable amount of time talking to people and observing, and I had already been doing that before I wrote the book on Priyanka, to understand that, to understand how somebody who's like 17 years old can become a Miss India. And you're coming from a small town like Bareilly. That was more interesting. I mean, you know, could it be controversy? I don't know. But I mean, that's something that everyone should be interested in as such.
You know, given that all your three biographies have been about people whose appeal cuts across regions, I want to ask you if you had different takeaways each time, because ultimately the objective of also writing a biography is to understand the person within, right? To sort of unearth a deep truth about the person that you're writing about and present it to the world. did you find that there were some universal truths that apply to all three of them, or did you find that their ebbs and falls were different?
Well, I think the reason why all three of them chose to go outside India, well, at least in Irfan's case and in Shashi Kapoor's case, were sort of similar. Shashi Kapoor came from a theater background. Had theater training with his father, and then with his father-in-law. His wife came from the theater background. Shashi Kapoor only chose to act in sort of the songs and dance kind of films because he had to make money, because his child was already, Kunal was already born, and he still was really not making any money at all. He had some huge arguments with Yash Chopra when Dharamputra was being made, which is Shashi's practically his first film. And, Yash Chopra wanted to lip sync some songs, and Shashi was like, that's not the kind of work I want to do. And then Shashi, of course, realized that that's what he has to do. And over a period of time, he accepted that that's what this industry called for. But when Shashi got a chance to act with Merchant Ivory team, or he got a chance to act in something like Siddhartha, or later he got a chance to act in a film called Sammy and Rosie Get Laid, which was based on a Hanif Qureshi's script, basically, Shashi would jump at it because the artist in him was really, really, the satisfaction that he got was in that kind of cinema. Not always. He did some great work in India also. I mean, he acted in New Delhi Times, for instance, which was the Ramesh Sharma's film, which got him a national award. Shashi produced 6 or 7 films. One, of course, he directed, which was quite crappy, but he produced some wonderful films, and some of his best performances were in Shyam Benegal's Junoon and in Kalyug. But he wanted more. Irfan was very similar in that sense. Irfan, while was doing very well in India, Irfan had this thing, like he would get bored very easily and wanted something new and challenging at all times. And so whenever he got this opportunity, even before he had agents working for him in the US, he would jump at those opportunities because he didn't want to do the same kind of films again and again. And that's why, Irfan has left a wonderful body of work that, even though, he died so young, that we can really admire. When you have Namesake and Lunchbox and Maqbool and Pan Singh Tomar, and then he goes abroad and does some interesting work. He did some work that made him a lot of money in Jurassic Park and films like that. He was looking at all times was a lot more challenging work. Priyanka's story is even interesting. I think Priyanka had reached a certain stage in her career. Perhaps, this is completely my interpretation, that she felt that there wasn't much room to rise. And we've seen that with a number of actresses, especially when they reach a certain stage. Some who leave and come back. Madhuri Dixit has had a very hard time sort of making a comeback. Rani Mukherjee never had a sort of a career after a particular point in time, and she put all her eggs in the basket with the Yash Raj pictures. Preeti Zinta is more or less finished also. And Priyanka was sensing that, and Priyanka is still trying to sort of pave the way, a new way for herself, but she's the first one to do it in this way, and clearly she's hungry for interesting work, and that's one of the reasons. Now, of course, she's there because she's married also, and therefore she's living in the US. But work is what was important for her, and that's why she left India, I think.
Yeah, a commonality across the 5 books among the 3 of you is, of course, that you did not get to speak with the person themselves who you were writing about. And I want to ask you this as writers: do you guys constantly have a lot of people opening the book looking for interviews with the person who the book is supposed to be about and getting disappointed about that? Do you get a lot of that?
Well, in my case, I did have a lot of interviews because, thankfully, I was able to access a lot of the Stardust and Filmfare and, a lot of the magazines of the 80s and the 90s. I myself had a huge stack because I was such a big Sridevi fan. So I myself had about 50, 60 magazines, which I had bought back then as a crazy teenager. But now they ended up as a wonderful resource because I had all her interviews across all these years. We get to know about her thoughts and what she was thinking about her roles, her career, her life, about herself generally in every possible aspect. We get that in your book because you have been able to access all these wonderful magazines. So I think
Right.
for me, I kind of did strike gold there, where all these magazines became a big resource for me. So that is there. But one thing, yes, I do get a lot. Moment people hear that I have written a Sridevi book, the first thing they ask is, "Acha, but was it an accident or was she murdered?" You know, that is what everybody wants to know. And I'm like, I have the reason out there, which is what
Right.
has been told me, not just by her family, but even people that she worked with. And these are credible voices that I respect. So I have the reason out there. With whether you choose to believe or not believe, that is entirely your point of view. And again, like Asim said, we are not investigative journalists. We don't need to go, and kind of investigate. But this is what the story is out there, which has been corroborated by a lot of people that you work with. So I just hope to some extent we can kind of lay that goes to rest.
Karishma, you want to take that?
So it was the same for Parveen as well. I relied very heavily on the interviews that she'd done over the decade that she spent in the industry. So yeah, I mean that's where her voice comes into the book from. But there's one particular piece that Parveen wrote herself, which was a cover story for the Illustrated Weekly. This was after she'd quit the industry, where she spoke about, it kind of encapsulated a few years of her life, where she talked about her breakdown and what she was actually going through, which, more than people describing to me what they saw her do, this helped because she, in her own words, was writing about what it felt like to kind of, lose the grips on her mind and what a psychotic episode for her was like. So that, that one piece for me, I feel made a huge difference in the book.
Right. I mean, it's interesting that Satyat mentioned now that people ask him about Sridevi as though he were an expert on all matters Sridevi. Do you guys get a lot of that yourself? Because you've written biographies about people.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially with the Priyanka
Especially
Chopra book.
because mine came out when it did.
Yeah, you were saying.
Sorry, Karishma, please go on.
Yeah, no, I was saying I've been getting a lot of that also because my book came out when it did, which was a complete coincidence. But, so there was a lot of talk about mental health issues and death, and, Mahesh Bhatt was involved. And so, yeah, I mean, the kind of questions I've gotten about Parveen, and I'm just like, it's there. There is a police FIR that tells you how she passed away. There are photographs of the day when the police discovered her body and everything. So where are all your conspiracy theories coming from? It just makes no sense. But yes, I still get a lot of people who turn around and tell me that she was murdered.
Has that have such questions affected your interest in doing more biographies at all?
No, no. I just laugh at them. But the experience of writing this one has made me. I never thought I would want to write a biography. And like I told you earlier, this kind of came out of the blue. But now that I've done this, it's really kind of, poked at the reporter in me. And that was the bit that I enjoyed the most, like going out, meeting people, which I think I'd kind of been missing for the last few years in my career. So that's made me want to maybe write more.
I mean, you spoke about being a reporter, and Kaveri, of course, spoke about how all of us are film journalists at the beginning of this conversation. I mentioned this because I noticed that interview durations are getting laughably small these days. I find that reporters are often given 5 and 6 minute durations in which to perform, in which to have long conversations. A biography, of course, means that you're in it for the long haul. You're having long conversations with a lot of people around. Do you think that's a skill that many reporters of today struggle with or will struggle with? Do you suppose simply because of the day-to-day conversations, the mini interviews that they do as part of their job? Any of you?
I'll take that because I'm still doing interviews. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it really boggles the mind how they expect to have a proper conversation to churn out an interesting enough copy in the 5 or 8 minutes that very often one gets.
Yeah, I mean, we still manage, of course, but yeah.
Of course, I mean, you have to, but yeah, no, you're right. And I feel, because, with these longer conversations also, because you have to wait for the other person's person to kind of jog his or her memory. You have to not rush in and fill the silences because you want to wait for the other person to do that because you don't know what you'll get. Those are things that one learned when we did the longer form interviews a few decades ago. So yeah, I'm guessing it's going to be harder for the kids today who are not used to that format.
Asim, I wanted to ask you, have you been requested to do more biographies? Do you want to continue with it? Are you looking at something else? Since you become quite the expert at it.
Is it the beginning of a new trilogy?
You have no idea. Even when I selected Priyanka, when I selected Shashi Kapoor, suggested to me for biographies, and I kept saying no, no, no. And no, what was very important for me was, I mean, I had to really write a long email to my editors that this is going back 3-4 years ago, why I didn't want to write about Kangana. This is way before Kangana has become what she's become here. But I think what is very, very important, and I realized when
by the way, why didn't you?
Kangana as an actor has never impressed me. This is just a personal thing. I mean, there have been some really good films, I would say, interesting films, important films. But as a person, she never interested me. And some of her performances that people think are really very good, the Tannu Manu films, etc. I wish I'd never seen them anyway. So it was not something that was, what is really important when you're writing a biography, when you're spending, I mean, Karishma spent 3 years on Priyanka Chopra, on Parveen Babi. My projects, each of the projects took less than 2 years. You really have to like and respect the person you're writing about. That is very important because you're going to be living with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're reading about them, you're talking about them, you're thinking about them, you're watching their films, you're watching some really bad films of theirs also. My God, how many bad films of Priyanka Chopra I watched, how many bad films of Shashi Kapoor I watched. And yet you're trying to see some hope, some sense of where this actor is going and where the actor's career is going. In Priyanka's case was where I really began to respect her more and more as I was researching about the book, how hard she worked, how she evolved and improved her acting skills and everything else over a period of time. I thought that was really, it's very, very impressive what Priyanka was when she made a film like Andaz. And by the time she was in Sanjay Leela Bhansali's film, the one with Bajirao or Dil Dhadakne Do, those kind of performances. It's amazing how that journey of an actress. So that is important for me. I mean, many more names have been suggested, but when the Irfan book came my way, after the Irfan book was over, I needed to take some time, and then Irfan passed away, and then I was giving more and more interviews, even in April, and we still talk about these things. I just wanted some space. I just needed some time off. The other thing that I don't know if Karishma and Satyat had felt that I didn't interview 100 people. Irfan's book I interviewed like 40 plus people. Other books also I interviewed a lot of people. When I was writing about Shashi Kapoor, everybody wanted to give me an interview. Everybody. People kept saying, Shabana Azmi kept asking me again, kab aa rahi kitab? Kab aa rahi aapki kitab? That kind of a sense of it. Except for one person, I think, Kaveri, I told you about it, right? Girish Karnad sent me an email saying that he would not want to talk about Shashi Kapoor, which is fine. But I think what happens is, by the time I did the Priyanka book, and especially by the time I did the Irfan book, I felt I was chasing filmmakers and other personalities for the interviews. These are people who I know very well. I mean, there are people who have come to the festival I program in New York. I've interviewed them before. We chat on Twitter all the time, and yet to get them to pin them down, and it was like really, I had to chase some people for the Irfan book, and people who I thought they were, consider them quote unquote friends. It gets exhausting after a while, and I wanted to take some time. I want to take some time off from that. Really, I mean, people I respect, and yet there's this one particular person who, I finally talked to this person in New York while I was chasing him in Bombay, and then he canceled on me a few times, and I was like, "Ye kya ho raha hai yaar?" Asif Kapadia kept promising me an interview for 6 months, and just didn't make the time. But the thing was, the Priyanka book, for instance, although I did not talk to Priyanka herself, I had interviews with Priyanka I had interviewed her in the past. That was my material. I could use it. I had even interviewed Priyanka's mother about the production company they had established in Priyanka's interest in regional cinema. That was my material. I could use it. Irfan I had interviewed a few times in the past. Irfan, actually, I thought I could get an interview with him, except for his health never improved as such. But, you know, you end up putting so much work in writing these books that you say to yourself, like, I need some time to breathe.
Right. I mean, guys, how important is the approval or the necessary permissions from those who you have to, you know, who you're writing these books about, either the person themselves or the family? How important is that, and does it get in the way of objectivity at all?
Yeah, I mean, for me, first, it was important because I wanted Boni to be a part of the book right from day one, and he came on board right immediately, and he helped me with a lot of the other interviews. So, of course, it was very important for me that he approved the final manuscript that came out, and I mean, entirely to his credit, he never asked for any major changes or anything to be left out. I mean, he was happy with what the way I put it out. So, but yes, he read the book. He sent a copy to Janvi, and they all got back saying that they have liked the material. Having said that, maybe there are certain portions Boni was more interested in her journey as a star rather than the person that she was. And he's still not happy with the word biography. He doesn't believe that what we have put out is a biography. He's saying it's more of a filmy journey rather than what he. And there are a lot of stories that he himself has, which he says, "Ye kitab main khud likhunga ek din." Lot of his own memories with Sridevi, which he narrated to me one day in a hotel in Hyderabad, where we spent the whole night talking about Sri, and he remembered all those wonderful moments he had with her. All of that he did let me put that in the book. That is his own book, which will probably come out one day whenever that does. But I think approval. I mean, of course, because see, you can write a book like someone like a Yasir Anwar, who would rather go about and write a book and not bother about who he's talking to. But for me, it was important that the family was on board, so that I get a certain amount of access to people, to stories, to details that otherwise I would not be privy to. So that for me was extremely important. So I think it is a kind of a barter where you get a certain amount of access, and then certain things kind of then are off the table. So I think that balance has to be struck somewhere, where you're getting something and you're losing something in the process. So
and then of course there is the case of your own admiration for the person who you're writing about.
Absolutely.
Both Asim and you seem to be on board with that, in the sense that you.
Yeah, but having said that, there are definitely a lot of things that I've talked about her, which I don't agree with a lot of stuff that she did. I mean, for example, a lot of her film choices in the 80s were frankly extremely terrible. I mean, she could have definitely gone for better films. Also, I think when she came back as an actress after 15 years, she somehow was a much tamer person as a star. She was not the Sridevi who had done those firebrand kind of roles in the 80s. She seemed like, even in interviews, she would say that I would not do roles that I cannot sit and watch with my family. I think that was extremely self-restricting. I mean, because she was in a stage in her career where she could have just exploded and, she could have just experimented so much, but she started creating these boundaries for herself. So there are things I didn't really agree with. But yeah, end of the day, it is about someone who has entertained us for 50 years. And there is really very, very little that you can talk unsavory about someone who is so wonderful with her craft. So yeah, that is what it is.
I mean, I'm assuming that every person that you talk to about these people for the purpose of this biography, they're all going to have their own agendas. They're all going to be either careful, diplomatic, or put things in a way that suits them. What do you guys do? Do you probe further? Do you sort of cross-check information?
No, absolutely. Cross-checking is extremely important, because ultimately what you put out about a person kind of then stays in that book forever. So extremely very important. I have a journalistic background myself. So for me, it is extremely important whatever information I get. And I was very clear from day one that there is nothing speculative will go in the book. Whatever goes in the book is something that can be corroborated. It is either there in the public domain, like Asim says, it is very much there in a magazine, or someone has actually told me about it. Because the moment you enter the zone of speculation, then you can keep endlessly speculating about everything and everything. So for me, that was something I was very clear about from day one. Whatever information you have in the book, every fact, every figure, every information has been cross-checked, has been, it is a fact out there. So that is something I know I can kind of take pride in that. Yeah.
Satya, tell me this. I mean, these days, what passes for journalism is also slightly suspect, isn't it? When it comes to writing about celebrities, when it comes to writing about films. So, is the fact that something appeared in a magazine good enough for you guys, or do you have further filters there?
No, I mean, see, again, a lot of the magazines I had were archival magazines from the 80s or the 90s. So there is not much fact checking one could do going back 20 years back. But if there are certain interesting portions that you like what you read, and it gives you a certain insight into the person that she is. So that for me is an interesting nugget to pick out from that particular magazine to talk about it. So those are interesting facts and factoids. But definitely, like I said, for me, very important to fact check, very important to put across information that has been corroborated. Like for example, even a lot of what I'm talking about, the way that what is out there in the book about her death, that is something that has been told to me about with her family, or someone like Nagarjuna or Pankaj Parashar who worked closely with her. So these are extremely credible voices. So then that story then kind of for me does kind of get a garb of truth, because it cannot be so that is what it is.
Karishma, may I just ask you, what was the most surprising thing to you, for you, in writing Parveen? Was there something that you hadn't expected?
The bit that I found myself being very fascinated by was her work ethic. So in the case of Parveen, people only talk about her affairs, her mental breakdown, her death, and the controversies. She didn't do, she wasn't the best of actresses, like compared to like say a Hema or a Rekha, but she was in some of the biggest films of her time. And so that fascinated me in terms of, what did she bring to the table? What was it that, like I mentioned earlier, what was it that made directors and producers want to sign her on, even though there was always a flight risk? And so those were the bits that I found very interesting. So, when the cinematographer of Shan told me that she was one of those rare actresses or rare, stars who would get onto a set and know the names of every light man and his family and ask about his kids and, just talk to everyone. Or Ravi Tandon talking about just how incredibly punctual she was pretty much till the end of her career. How in a film like Diwar, that kind of, people talk about the angry young man prototype that came in with that film, but no one talks about the role that she played, where her character had economic and sexual autonomy, which was unlike what you saw at that time on screen. So those were the bits that kind of surprised me, that interested me more than the affairs. And of course, the bits that not too many people knew about in terms of what she did in the US, and the years that she spent outside the industry. How did she get around, and what she did were the bits that those were the bits that surprised me. The fact that she lived in Houston in like a low income housing complex, got arrested at a post office, and stuff. Those were the surprising bits.
Absolutely.
Also, if I could just very quickly add to what Sudhir was talking about, the whole authenticity of the narrative.
Right.
Sometimes it's also interesting if you actually have two viewpoints in the book. You don't go with one or the other, but you keep both the conflicting points together, because that dichotomy itself also kind of, given the fact that, again, talking about someone whose life is so mystical and who we know so little about, when you have two interesting viewpoints, and then where do you choose to believe? Like, for example, there's a story about a very famous story that Saroj Khan had a riff with Sridevi in the early 90s, and they stopped working together for about a year. And Saroj Khan's version was, when I interviewed her version was that finally Sridevi saw the Beta Ka song, and then she called back and said, "I'm really sorry. I think we had can we get back together?" So her version was Sridevi called and apologized. But when I interviewed Pankaj Parashar, who directed Sridevi in Chalbaz, his version was, Saroj came to me early morning with a letter which said that, "Sridevi, I'm really sorry, can we get back together?" So so now you have two different versions. So where do you go with? So you'll find both in the book, and that I think makes a far more interesting reading, when you actually have some sort of a dialectic there at work, and then you kind of you get a whole new insight into what could have been and what could have been. So so just to talk about that.
Aseem?
In Shashi Kapoor's case, what I wouldn't say surprised me, but I was really fascinated about how I think Shashi Kapoor, because of the fact that he had started with his father in Prithvi
Yeah.
Theatre, and Prithviraj Kapoor had very clearly made it, told him, look, just because you're my son doesn't mean that you're going to get a lead role in a play or something like that. You have to start from the bottom. And that's how he rose up, basically, his whole experiences. Um, in the process, that's how he learned to respect people. So the stories many people told me that Shashi would be one of the first to arrive on the set, technician, every carpenter, and shake hands with them and say, "Mera naam Shashi Kapoor hai," and then he would sit and have chai with them, for instance. There was that generosity of the man, which I thought was really, to me, it was really very interesting. And also, no, the family man he was, that on weekends he would not work. Jennifer had a lot of influence on Shashi in terms of Jennifer, making sure that Shashi, his eating habits, for instance,
Right,
that
right.
Shashi would have a very small meals during the sets. Neetu Singh told me that he would just have like a little bit of yogurt or something like that, and an orange. Um, I thought that was very interesting, and that's how Shashi remained so slim for a very, very long time. I think that was very interesting. Irfan, I thought, I spoke to many of Irfan's classmates from National School of Drama days, and it's something that you don't realize when you're seeing him doing these really intense roles. But Irfan was a very, very shy person.
Right.
Very quiet, very shy to even approach people, although he had to approach people because in the 90s he was struggling so much and not getting a lot of work. And he went to people like, Mahesh Bhatt to sort of for support, and they did give him. But I think it's interesting that shyness of his was the reason why he wanted to become an actor and why he would then completely transform himself when he was in front of the camera.
I found one thread of what Seem spoke very interesting when he spoke about it earlier in the conversation. He spoke about how when a celebrity passes away, the biography starts selling suddenly. It's the case with at least, two writers that we have here of the three. And I want to ask you guys if there is a sense of guilt almost at making even minimal profit off the fact that somebody's passed away because of the resultant attention.
No, I felt really Irfan's death. I'm not the only one. I mean, so many people have approached me and written to me and sent me messages about when Irfan died and when they read parts of my book that they cried. Irfan book really shook me up and it disturbed me. And even now, sometimes, you get really sad about it. But yes, there was this guilt. I mean, it's not like I've made a lot more money. I know more copies have sold because of his death. But, I set out to write the book for a very different purpose. I set out to write the book because I wanted to just celebrate and revisit this man who I had a lot of respect for as an actor and as a human being also, as I was writing the book. And I wanted people to learn about him. Appreciate that and also see his films. I mean, that's very important for me that with Shashi Kapoor, so many people have come to me, written to me saying that they've gone and watched many of the films I've written about. For instance, they didn't know about that. They didn't know about the films or they hadn't seen them for a very long time. And to me, that is the most satisfying thing. Yes, when Shashi Kapoor died, I was in Macau of all the places. And it was around 7 or 8 at night when he died, and I was having a dinner with people, and I just left the dinner and went back to my hotel room. And the whole night, it was, you suddenly realize that I was the only one who had ever written a book on Shashi Kapoor. Getting calls from BBC and CNN and CBC and across the world, and of course in India. And I gave as many interviews as I could. I wrote as many pieces as I could, and then you want to sit and breathe. I remember almost 24 hours after Shashi had died. And there was this pause, and maybe because I was also sleep deprived, I started reading this one passage that I had in my book, and I burst out crying. And I was alone in my hotel room. Nobody's watching, and I needed that time to mourn also, because this is a man that I had loved since I was a child, and I loved him a lot more when I wrote a book about him. And you can just go on this and keep talking, but at some stage you say to yourself, like, look, listen, what a loss it was. Irfan's was the same thing. I mean, the moment Irfan died, I mean, suddenly you get this call like, okay, can we have a piece now in another 2 hours or something? And then another piece, BBC wanted a piece. And I'm like, okay, I'll do those things. But when do I sit back and say, oh my God, I've lost an actor that I loved so much. I'm a fan also. And, you know, you do start to cry in your quiet moments. So your question about did I feel guilty if my books are selling more? I guess, yes, but you know, it's not something I could do anything about. You know, that's not the way I wanted. I wanted Irfan to get better. I wanted to actually interview him.
So some things can't be. But thank you all very
Yeah.
much. I think it was a really engaging discussion, and thank you for bringing to life all these characters that we've loved so much, and to bring them back to the pages of these books. Thank you all. Thank you, Karishma. Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Aseem. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Kaveri.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
you.
for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this session. If you would like to know more about OLF 2020 or watch other videos, please visit newindianexpress.com and eventexpress.com. If you are more of a social media person, please visit our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels.